I'm Nick Von Walkerbarth, and you're listening to the VonDubCast. If you don't want to listen to me gap in the intro and you want to skip right to the interview, skip about 10 minutes. But before you do, please consider doing one of these couple things that really helps out the show. Following the social medias for the VonDubCast, subscribing, and leaving a review. If you could do those things, that'd be awesome. Also, give me a subscription on the YouTube channel. That'd be great too. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 61 of the VonDubCast. I got a really fun episode for you guys today. This is one of those ones where I talk about all these different avenues that I want to take the podcast and I want to kind of go down. I definitely always want the freedom to do whatever I want, but there's a couple kind of areas where I really want to try and make some waves in, right? One of them is MMA, as you guys have probably heard. I really love the sport, hockey players, podcasters, YouTubers. And then there's also kind of a lane of wanting to bring important issues to light and find people that can really articulate them well and bring them to you guys so that I can learn and you guys can learn as well. And this is one of those ones. I had Jennifer Sims from the Alzheimer Society of Grande Prairie on, and I didn't really know what I was going to get out of this. I'd kind of reached out to this society a couple months back and asked if they would have somebody that would want to represent them and come have a chat about it. And I didn't have too many expectations about it. It was just kind of, again, one of those lanes I wanted to go down. There's been a couple other things similar to this that I've reached out on. This is the first one that kind of hit. And we played a little bit of phone tag and went back and forth. And I think Jen was a little bit nervous, as everyone should be. This is a new thing for somebody, if you've never done a podcast before. So those nerves are to be expected. And, we just had a couple really good conversations on the phone, and I could get the feeling that Jen really cared about this subject, and that even though she was nervous, she really wanted to do it because she wanted to make that impact. And then we made it happen. We sat down, and it was an amazing conversation. From the minute she started talking about what she does and the work that she does and all that, her eyes just lit up, and you could tell that this is something she cares about so deeply. And that's exactly what I'm after with this podcast. I don't care what that thing is. I just want somebody that cares deeply like I do for this podcast. And it was just amazing. The conversation, the things that I learned, went over warning signs, kind of breaking down a little bit. I got to ask the questions I've always wanted to ask that maybe I thought would be rude to ask somebody that's in the situation. And I think I learned a lot, and it just goes to show how much this disease is not as damning as it can be. And there's so many ways you can work with it and find ways to live your life and find enjoyment for people around you and just like the person-centered healing or whatever she called it. Sorry, it's been a few weeks since this episode was recorded. I'm always a little bit behind, especially lately with the firestorm of episodes I've been recording. I'm quite behind on them. But yeah, no, I don't remember exactly what we said in this conversation just due to that, but I remember the feeling it gave me. And I remember coming out of this one thinking, wow, that was impactful. I learned a lot. And I hope that you guys do too. For me, I've just been just wrapping up an amazing weekend. I wonder if you can hear it in my voice. Did hours and hours and hours of podcasting this weekend up in Lloydminster, Alberta, with some really special people. Andrew Mavridis, he's a local MMA fighter out of Lloyd here. Really interesting guy. It was so much fun to talk MMA with him. Unfortunately, I feel bad now. I kind of barely talked about his journey, and we just bullshitted MMA and how much we love the sport, and it was so much fun. I've been absolutely dying to have that exact conversation that we had, so I can't wait to bring that one to you guys. Did one with a couple guys named Tanner and Ken, who I had seen through Sean Newman, who I also recorded with last night, and listening to their podcast and listening to them as guests on podcasts, I really connected with them, especially Ken. I feel like we're very much a similar person, and he's, got quite a few years on me, but I feel like we're so similar in that, and we're just separated by a little bit of time. But I know he's going to be on many times before, and we're going to do some solo episodes too, and I think he's a very special guy, and I can't wait for that episode to release and for you guys to listen to him a little bit, because I feel like he has a voice and a message that is very important, and a bunch of people would benefit from hearing. So Ken and Tanner and Sean Newman, who I've had on before, but I got to do in person, and we ended up doing over 3 hours. We were just talking about this podcast journey, and he really pushed me to ask myself some questions that I really didn't want to answer, and I love that, and it helped me grow, and I feel like I just came out of that 3 or 4 levels better than I went into that conversation. That's exactly what I'm looking for with this podcast, so I can't wait to bring that one to you guys as well. And just got to give a shout out to the Hancock family up in here in Lloyd. I say they're family friends, but they're more like family to me, and just treated me like gold, made sure that I had everything I needed to make this podcast trip successful. It was a little bit of a scary one because I had all new equipment I didn't know how to run. The timing was pretty tight on getting all these episodes in, and they just made me feel like anything I needed, whether I asked for it. like I'll tell you a little story. So I was just in a rush trying to get this first episode, all this equipment set up before Andrew got here. We had moved the time up to 9:30, so we had to leave Edmonton at 6 a.m. To get to Lloyd and then get all this stuff set up. And in my rush, I tried to put the SD card into this new Rodecaster soundboard, and I got it totally corkscrewed and pressed up all the way into it, and I couldn't get it out, and I'm just freaking out, and I just had to, you don't want to. I just rolled in. I didn't want to ask for any special favors. I just said, Jason, you got some tweezers or something? And he just went to work, jumped in his toolbox, found me some tools to get it ripped out and get it all back in. And it was just so nice to have that support for this first week. And I think after, I feel so much more confident to go take this show on the road down to Calgary and back down to Edmonton and all over, wherever I can get a couple people that want to record. This weekend has filled me with a lot of excitement for the future and what I can do with this. And I feel like just the first one is always the scariest. And once you do that, it's kind of easy, not easy, but a lot easier. So I just had an amazing weekend, and it's so much due to the Hancocks here and how good they treat me. And also just, it's so nice to catch up with COVID. We haven't seen them in, over a year. It's probably almost even 2. And that is just so nice to catch up with the kids and see just how much they've grown and just I know all of their kids from the time they were just, barely walk, and to watch that journey. I feel like I didn't get to, I love kids. I always want to be around kids, but just, I was always the youngest of our family, so we never really had kids around. I was always the baby. So it's quite the experience to watch their personalities grow on their own. And you can see it from when they were kids, just that individual spark they had in them, all 3 of these kids. And I just, it's so much fun for me personally to just come here and just get caught up with where they are and who they are and just how different that is. And just, it's special to watch. And I just can't wait to see what they do and where they go in this world. And that sort of stuff. I know that's a little bit hippy dippy for you guys maybe, but I really enjoy that stuff, and it makes me happy. It fills me up. So I couldn't ask for a better weekend than this, not only on the podcast side, but just on the personal side. This is the type of trip that really fills my cup. And I think we got a little bit extra time before I have to pull the pin. So maybe play a little guitar with Kale, maybe do a little hot tubbing with Jason. And that's exactly my favorite things. And we watched the Oilers game last night, and we had some good meals, and it was Jason's birthday yesterday. Went to the Fourth Meridian brewery here in town and had a couple brews, and Jason gave me the full tour of Lloyd and showed me all the industrial section, and kind of me and him talked shop after the weekend, even though we always say we're not going to talk shop, and then we ended up talking about work all the time. But it's always so fun to talk about it with Jason, because we do similar things at work. I don't want to say we do the same thing. I think that would be tooting my own horn a little bit. I think Jason's doing a lot more than what I got on my plate by far. But just to have him, he's always treated me like an equal, and it really means a lot to me to be able to have these types of conversations where I don't have to worry about feeling bad or that I'm tooting my own horn like I'm saying here. He just, he recognizes the work that I do and talks to me like I'm an equal, and I find I can get so much out of that because it just allows that free form talking. Like we were drinking beers with all the kids and stuff on Friday night, and then they all went to bed, and me and him stayed up just sitting around the poker table drinking beers and just talking shop till 1:30 in the morning. And it's just so much fun, and I knew we would. We do this all the time. That's kind of our go-to. Don't talk shop while the family's around, them. Once everybody goes to bed, we really dig into it and try and solve all the world's problems. But I just I had so much fun here this weekend, and can't wait to do this again and to take it further. And like I said, the conversations with all these guys, but especially with Sean Newman, really pushed me and really forced me outside my comfort zone. So I think I get a lot out of that, and I'm happy that I did it. And other than that, same old things. Follow the VonDubCast on YouTube, Instagram, all those things. That really helps. Tell a friend. Word of mouth is the only way that these things spread. As unfortunate as that is, you can throw all the money at marketing that you want. Even though I don't do that, and I throw $0 at marketing, I still truly believe that it's word of mouth that spreads these things. And I'd really enjoy this episode. So I kind of got a little off track of what that was, but Jennifer Sims, just an amazing person that really cares about Alzheimer's and dementia and wants to make a change. And there's some really good information in this. If you know anybody that's struggling or would need some of these resources, please pass this on. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend or a great week, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Record on this computer. Looks like it's recording. All right, perfect. All right, welcome everybody. I have a very special guest today, Jennifer Sims from the Alzheimer Society of Grande Prairie. Alzheimer's is something that's very close to me and something I've always been very curious about to learn. And just before we jump into it, I just want to put a big disclaimer at the front that neither of us are scientists, neither of us are doctors. We have both, different levels of familiarity with lots of the things we're going to talk today. Sometimes we might get a little bit out over our skis, and we'll try and let you guys know if we're getting into some of those areas, but just give us a little bit of grace at the start that we're just doing our best, and we're just trying to raise some awareness, and I'm trying to learn a few things, and hopefully you guys can too. So thank you so much for being here, Jennifer.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Nick. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we're able to make the time, and I think it's going to be a really good and informational session for us to kind of take a look at and be able to raise some awareness, maybe reduce some stigma, and let people know where there's help to be had. So,
I think with lots of things like that have a stigma around them, I think it's hard to bring that information forward in a way that people can take it in, right? Like if you put a 5-minute after school special or 50-minute after school special, you can only get so much information into it, and it's hard for people to really attach. I like to have things like this where we have no time limit. We can talk about other things, wind our way back and forth, and it really allows people to dig in and maybe understand things on a deeper level. So I think you're right. I think this is going to really help some people. But maybe even before we hop into that, I might just want to ask you, how are you doing? With the last year of craziness, just want to check in with my guests and see how life's going before we hop into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's definitely been the ups and downs, and with us, we help such a vulnerable population that the decision was made to kind of close the doors early, move home, which for me meant moving into the corner of my basement, and trying to find a really strong, good internet service provider that can be making sure that we're not losing calls and things like that. So things have been able to kind of smooth out. I think that there's always those silver linings that are in there, and we can definitely discuss some of those. But it's definitely been a challenge for us and for our clients. I definitely find though that when push comes to shove, we have an amazing team, and our clients and our community has been so closely behind us that we've been able to really push forward and find ways to make things work. So it's actually been able to, like I said, those silver lines have really been able to come out, especially with our programs and services and things like that as well. So there's been, those tough times, and I hope that we'll find some light at the end of our tunnel, hopefully sooner than later. But it's been good overall.
Yeah. And I think I've heard that from so many people, kind of that mixture of the two things, like the resilience and the creativity that's coming out of this, of finding solutions to do as much of what you could do before and bring those services to people in whatever people are doing. But also there are those lows and those times. I think that story of trying to, find a place to set up your work and get a good internet connection and get back to some sort of sense of normalcy is a story I've heard hundreds of times throughout this pandemic. But it's nice to see it's different for some people with different jobs and different responsibilities, right? And like you said, you work with such a vulnerable portion of the population. It adds another layer of importance to make sure that you get things back up and running smoothly and efficiently, and make sure that they have what they need. But maybe just to get started, could you maybe give me just a little bit of a breakdown of what the Alzheimer Society do, what types of services you guys provide, and just maybe a brief summary of what it is, but then we can dive more into it after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of that 20,000 feet kind of idea. Our goal is to bring information, education, and support to families that are living with dementia. And when we say families that are living with dementia, that is everyone that's connected with that person. So you have the person that themselves are diagnosed and living with dementia, as well as everyone that is connected to them. So their care partners, their families, whether it be their adult children or even their grandchildren. Our goal is to be able to support them and educate them so then they can live well through the progression of it. So
and go ahead.
I was just going to say that, we have, so programs and services, we have something called First Link, which is a referral program. So we're able to help healthcare providers be able to find a connection into the Alzheimer's Society that way.
Yeah.
Then we have something called the First Link Connection, which is an information session. We have something called Minds in Motion, which is there's a cognitive portion and an activity portion.
Okay.
We have our amount of support groups seem to be growing and growing, which is exciting as well. So we have lots of different areas that way. Something that's new to us is the online webinars. We have them for the community members as well as healthcare providers. And on top of that, we have the online resources and things like that as well. So there's quite a wide variety of different things that are available.
Right. And it sounds like it mostly centers around supporting people that are going through it and just providing resource, providing information. When talking about providing information on that, I feel like that is also always difficult to provide the right information to the right people, especially when it's sensitive like that. You have to provide things in the right way where you're giving them the information they need without overwhelming them. And I'm just curious, in trying to get that information out, from what you've seen, where is the communication lacking so far? Like, where do you see people be surprised? What are the misconceptions people have? Because I feel like it's becoming more mainstream. People are understanding more about it. But I think usually things like that, we usually get half the information and have a little bit of misunderstandings. Do you see that when people come in before they get all the information that you guys arm them with? Where are the misconceptions lying?
Sure. So a couple of things come to mind right away that so 3 to 4 people have been touched by dementia in one way or another. And when people come in and they say, well, you can't help us because we don't have Alzheimer's, we have dementia.
Right.
And it's like, okay, perfect place to start.
Yeah.
Because dementia is an overall set of symptoms of changes in the brain, and Alzheimer's is a type of dementia.
Right.
So to right off the bat, be able to give them that understanding that Alzheimer's is one type. So even though we are called the Alzheimer's Society, we're able to help support, there's over 80 to 100 different types of dementia. So because there's so many different types of it, and there's so many similar symptoms through the different types of it, we're able to support families very similarly through it. So that's probably the biggest misconception.
Right.
I would say also knowing that there is help.
Yeah.
I know that our family, we didn't have help. We didn't know that there was help. For us, it was, I didn't even know this either. I've been with the society since 2017, and the Alzheimer's Society has been in Grande Prairie for 25 years.
Wow.
So that alone was news to me when I started, and I was super excited. And I had told my uncle, which my aunt had recently passed away from Alzheimer's.
Right.
And I had told him, you wouldn't believe what exciting news I have. I get to do events. I get to do education sessions. I get to do all these things. I'm so excited. And he started to cry and said, where were the services when I needed them? I struggled and all of this. And all that I could tell him is, they were here, and we just didn't have enough connections in the community to be able to get that support out. So having my grandmother pass away from vascular dementia, my aunt pass away from Alzheimer's disease, it's like I carry this soapbox around with me everywhere I go now to say, hey, there's supports. So just having people that don't realize, and there's this huge spectrum, because people will come to us and kind of say, I don't know what you can do for me, or my person's gone into care, so, I don't need your support anymore. But when we really get down to the nitty gritty, we have so many people that then on the other side of the spectrum come back to us and say, you saved our lives. We would not have been able to get through this without you. And thank you so much for that. So being able to have those power stories kind of come through, it's so heartwarming. And knowing that then people can say, yes, I have dementia, but I've learned how to live well with dementia. And I've been able to learn those techniques through the Alzheimer's Society. So it's been pretty cool and pretty powerful.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That's just so heartbreaking to hear that, to know that someone needs those resources and they're there, but they're just not aware of it. Right. And that's kind of what we're talking about, bringing awareness is so it happens in so many different ways, right? Like there's awareness of the disease itself. There's awareness of the resources around it. There's all this different kinds of awareness that you need to bring. And that's one thing that I would imagine is probably getting better in your 3 years there. More people are knowing that those resources are there. And I think one thing I would imagine, and stop me if I'm wrong, but with diseases like Alzheimer's, it is very natural to feel hopeless because for a long time, I think there people had that understanding or maybe that misconception around it that there is nothing you can do. So they maybe don't put everything towards finding those resources because they don't even know that they exist, or that the stigma around it that has been something that there's not much you can do has kind of hurt people in finding these resources that are available and are going to help them through that. And maybe just bringing that understanding of the different resources and how they can help. And maybe it doesn't, fix everything, but it can make it a lot less of a painful process. And I'm wondering if you think, do you think the name, the Alzheimer's Society, holds it back if there is that misunderstanding about dementia? Do you think like changing it to Alzheimer's and Dementia Society would help at all?
And, it's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah.
It's something that has come up, every so often to kind of say, what else could we do? When in doubt, it's a great conversation piece to say, actually there's, because really for us to have that, the right sign, because there's so much information to be able to say, kind of what should the name be, and even if we were to have a name change, now let's take a step back for just a second and say, so we're the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta and Northwest Territories. Within that, we have Yellowknife, Fort McMurray, Grande Prairie, Red Deer, Edmonton, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat.
Okay.
We're then also a part of the Alzheimer's Society of Canada.
Right.
So name changes and things like that would be pretty unique.
A little difficult.
But going back to trying to find that right name change. So depending on if you're a lumper or a splitter, like I said, so you have 80 to over 100 different types of dementia. So trying to find the right name would be quite the experience as well, because would it be the Alzheimer's vascular Lewy body frontal temporal, Parkinson's, Huntington's, society of everywhere under the sun kind of thing. So when we're able to work really closely with a lot of other societies, it definitely helps that those interagency bonds and connections. So that helps. It doesn't always mean that we can help everybody, but the name sometimes makes it difficult, but it's also a learning opportunity for people as well. So
that's great. And like you said, you started in 2017. I'm curious if just in that brief time, have you seen a change in understanding? Does it seem like people the information is getting out there, that more people are coming in more armed with more information, or has it been rather the same over that time?
So I can tell you that in 2017, from there to now, there has been a huge increase of referrals, whether they're direct referrals or self-referrals. In 2019, we tripled our referrals from the year previous.
That's awesome.
And the year previous, we more than doubled from the year before that.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's exactly what you want to see.
Exactly. So with COVID, actually, our referrals were down a bit because clinics were having to close and there weren't as many referrals being done. Doctors were doing the best that they could, and the fact that they were willing to do phone interviews and things like that with people just to try to help support and those kinds of things. A huge shout out to all the medical personnel that have helped over COVID. It's been a struggle, but you can definitely tell when those doors are opening back up again. We're having over 100 referrals a month.
Wow.
And so province-wide, right? So we're serving close to 8,000 families and things like that. So
that's almost overwhelming. I didn't realize there was that types of numbers, but I'm so glad to hear that the information is getting out and that it's growing and at that rate, because it is one of those things where the information is such a key piece to it. There's so much, just that little bit of information helps change the dynamic of what that journey is going to be like for you. And like you say, for that family, because it's something that doesn't just impact the person that's diagnosed. It is so widespread, and the impact is so major that you need those resources, even if you don't think you need them. Right. And I feel like getting that message out is awesome. And I think also probably benefits as well. I think just the tide turning in a lot of other things, the stigma around mental health and all these things, and just infirmity in general, and just that it's okay to not be okay in whatever sense it is, whatever genre, whatever your specific thing you're going through. I feel like that is changing. And I feel like Alberta specifically too, for a long time, we were, a very tough society, a very much, suck it up, pull up your bootstraps kind of a society. And I feel like that is still there and still very much active, but I think it's softening a little bit, and you see a little bit more of that. I'm not sure what the exact word is, but it's just getting a little better. And I think that just aids. It might not be directly impacting this, but I think that all works together. And I think just being more understanding and more compassionate as a society really helps these types of things. It really helps people open up and ask for that help, because I feel like for a lot of times people are, for whatever reason, scared to ask for that help, even if they have found it and they have located it.
Yeah. And I think that a huge part of it is that people are slowly learning that these warning signs are not, like, dementia is not a part of normal aging. Memory loss is not a part of normal aging. And that they're starting to ask questions, and it's great that they can look things up, and it's great to be able to start asking those questions. And I have to put out there to everyone listening that having the courage to ask the questions is, the best thing that we can have is knowing that the resources are out there. All you have to do is ask for them. And the more that we can get out and be able to promote good brain health, the better off I think that people will be. And that's one of the things that is so hard with COVID, is that the main areas of living well for your brain is affected by COVID. So, when we're looking at, taking some of those statistic numbers and putting it out there. So let's take a look at that for a minute, and then we'll take a look at COVID for a minute too. So age is the biggest risk factor when it comes to dementia. So when we're looking at numbers in Canada, we're looking at the age of 65, 1 in 11 will be diagnosed. At the age of 85, it comes up to 1 in 2. So we know that 65% of those diagnosed after the age of 65 are women. We know that 25,000 people are having new diagnosis every year. Right. So they're big numbers. Canada, there's currently 564,000 Canadians living with dementia. And they're looking at that number in the next 15 years to 937,000 is kind of rough numbers. So what that means for us, so even in Alberta, we have over 46,000 people living with dementia. Right. And that all costs, right? So currently it's costing over $10 billion annually to Canadians to be caring for people that are living with dementia. Right. So now when you take a look and put COVID on top of that, what does that look like? So people that used to be able to go to, say, adult day programs and have respite and all those kinds of things, those are changing because of it. So what does that mean? It means that care partners are not able to have the same supports as what they were. The biggest thing that we try to do is try to reduce care partner stress, because if the care partner is stressed, they have a higher chance of burning out. Who's going to take care of the person living with dementia if the care partner then becomes ill and needs to be hospitalized or things like that as well? And when we're looking at self-isolating, we're not able to do things as well as what we would have done before. We're not able to be maybe getting as much exercise as we would have done, because maybe we can't go to the mall and walk around the mall to try to do those things. Being able to be socially active is really big with it too, because if we're not able to be having those conversations as easily with people, and being able to learn Zoom and things like that, like learning new things is great for your brain, but it's not always enough. And so it's definitely been tough on the care partners. It's been
For
tough on the
sure.
people living with dementia as well. So COVID has definitely hit it in a little extra
Yeah.
places for people. So it's been definitely a struggle for, our mental health. And when we look at our mental health, it's huge areas for our brain health as well.
Yeah, just hearing you talk about caregiver burnout, like I feel like that is, I didn't really put that together in my head, but I just imagine that's a hard thing to go through in the best of times, but now you stack something else on top of that and just the extra pressures of that. I just imagine that is rampant across the country, across the world right now with people in similar situations and this, like, just to have to deal with all that at once without your regular support systems that you have, or just your outlets, your relief valves, right? Just going to the mall, even if it's not for exercise, even if that's just your thing that you do. Like, everybody has a thing that they do to blow off some steam. And I feel like so much of that is taken away, that's just added things that we don't think about. I think that's what's good about having conversations like this, is that you think about the first level issues with COVID and how it affects. And I think having conversations like this, I can go a little deeper. You hear the second and third level things that add up to it, that are really building the full picture of what people are struggling with in reality. And I think that's very important for people to hear. There's a couple things I heard in there that I'd like to ask you about. One was warning signs. What are the typical warning signs? What do people, what should people be looking out for? And I think with that, just to go along with that as well, I think sometimes people are so scared of the answers they're going to find that they sometimes will deny the warning signs. And I feel like that is also very important for people to look out for people, right? Your friends, your family, and to be looking for these warning signs as well, because I think sometimes it takes a loving person to come up and really have that hard conversation to make somebody look at it, because there are resources that they can have if they take that step to ask those questions and look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're in person and we're being able to do all the information sessions and things like that, we definitely go over those 10 warning signs, and we'll go over them now as well. So when we're looking at those warning signs, we're looking at things like the memory loss that affects the day-to-day abilities.
Okay.
So that could be forgetting new information that's being brought in, the difficulty of performing familiar tasks. That could be something, making a cup of coffee, right? So you have your coffee pot, your coffee grounds, and all those kinds of things. But it's, where do I know I need to put something into the basket, but how do I put them into the basket? Right. And we problems with language, word association, right? That thing.
Yeah.
And it's a real struggle, because everybody, they all want to know, well, what's a warning sign? Well, those warning signs can look a little bit different, because everybody is so
Everybody's
unique,
so different.
right?
Yeah.
They're so they're still general, those general signs. Like when I say word association, my mom has blessed me with the ability to have a lack of word association.
Yeah.
So that's my starting line. My starting line is lower than most people.
Yeah.
So that's something that we know. But when we find that our words are even more difficult to come across, getting disorientated in time and space. Right. So not knowing the day of the week, or
where they are, or
and getting lost in familiar places, right? Going out to the store and not remembering how to get home, right? That's not okay. So for instance, we go to West Edmonton Mall and we forget where we parked our car.
Right.
That's normal.
Yeah.
We go to, say, Walmart, or go to another store and we take a cab home because we forgot that we drove. That's a concern. Right. So having that impaired judgment too. So, are we wearing the right clothes on the right days, or are we getting lots of heavy clothes and going out when it's too warm, or not having enough clothes on and going out when it's too cold?
I never would have thought of that one.
Necessarily recognizing what we need to be doing. Our judgment level isn't there.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Some of that abstract thinking.
Yeah.
So the balancing a checkbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that, for the people that still balance their checkbooks.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about, that there's lots of different executive functions that we use that can change. There's misplacing things, the watch in the sugar bowl and those kinds of things. So when we're looking at stress, stress can be a big part of it. I can say that it's normal to try to put the coffee pot into the fridge and go, oh, whoops, I made a mistake, and go and put it where it should be. But if we're putting the groceries away and we're finding that the groceries are actually in the closet or those kinds of things, we know that that's something to be concerned about. Being able to, those changes in mood and behavior, that's something too, is that are we having really big mood swings, changes in personality? Like, because the thing is that are we finding that we're being more, fearful or suspicious, or is there changes in anxiety and lots of initiative? Are we losing interest in our friends and family and favorite activities? And again, there's a lot of different areas in there that COVID is affecting.
Right. And masking a lot of things of, is this or is it that, right? Oh man, it compounds a lot.
Well, and when we say, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing, that's definitely a part of our brain health as well. Because if we're out and we're learning new things and we're, it could be something as taking a daily drive.
Yeah.
Right. If we're not doing those things, our brains just aren't as active. So we could be losing initiative a lot easier and that kind of thing as well. And when we don't have people coming over to visit us to help us to be more active in those kinds of things, that could be a piece of it. But it's interesting when we talk about some of those warning signs and say, what should I be concerned about? If people ever have any questions on it, they can always reach out to us or look on our website as well. Just to plug it in there, www.alzheimer.ab.ca. And there's a toolkit on there to be able to take to your doctor and say, check off the boxes as we go, take it in. And it really helps be able to let the doctor see what you're seeing and be able to help keep your thoughts all together. And there's often times that, say, our spouses might notice things that we don't, or those kinds of things as well. So
and that's that's one of those things. It sounds like with so many of these warning signs are really important factors to be aware of your baseline too, and know what things are, right? Like I'm the same way. I have decent recall of words, but I have such a obsession with finding the right word that I will not stop, even if I find a word that is close to one. I think I did it even before we started. I knew there was a word that I wanted it, but I know that's normal for me. So if I started to see that more, I'd have to look out for it, but I could compare it because I'm aware, and I've check that with myself, that I know this is kind of par for the course. And I feel like that's also very important to keep an eye on. Like you say, sometimes spouses will see things that someone might not see themselves. And I feel like it's good to be aware of what those baselines are. And just with knowing that it is such a common thing that people are going to have to deal with, I feel like moving people more towards that awareness of, hey, this is something that may be useful to be aware of, so that if these warning signs do start to pop up, you're not left, okay, did they always do that? Or is that new, right? You're doing that at that moment. If you start doing that earlier, you're in a much better spot to kind of parse the wheat from the chaff in those types of situations.
Well, and I really like that you bring that up, because when people go in for, say, testing, now let me make sure that I'm clear to be able to say that there is no formal test for Alzheimer's disease. So let's kind of put that out there. People will often ask, how do I get tested? And the test is that the doctors test for basically everything else, and kind of weed it out to find out what is left. They're going to be doing, like x-rays and blood tests and all those kinds of things, because different things like infection could mimic signs and whatnot. But something that they do is they do these mini mental tests. And it's a cookie cutter test, right? So everybody's kind of asked very similar questions. Well, if I've always had a hard time with word association, I might naturally score lower. And or if I've never really looked at a clock. I might not know how to draw a clock.
Yeah.
Or math, or
Mhm.
a number of different questions that are asked. So it's really interesting to see. And I wonder, and this is my personal opinion,
Mhm.
but I wonder going forward if we're ever going to start doing baseline tests at a certain age to be able to say, okay, well, this person's baseline, say mini mental's out of 30. So this person's baseline is, a 28 out of 30.
Mhm.
So we're not going to be concerned as much when they're a 27 out of 30, right?
Right.
Where somebody else might be a 30 out of 30, and now we're seeing a decline, and then it's something to be concerned with. So it's like, if we're testing our physical, how are we testing our mental? Now, it's not, and it's not easy for people to go through those tests either. We talk about the penny, right? I enjoy going in and giving presentations because we talk about penny questions, and it's essentially, it's talking about how people feel when they are being tested for dementia. So if I said to you, Nick, I'm going to test you, and I want you to draw, and maybe we can even do this. So if you have a piece of paper, I sure do.
I sure do.
Okay, perfect. So I want you to draw 2 big circles on your page.
Okay. Does it matter what orientation?
No. So I need you to, on the first circle, I need you to draw the front of the penny, and on the other circle, I need you to draw the back of the penny.
Okay. This is going to test my memory because the old pennies have gone away.
Okay. Right. Well, and the thing is that we know that we've seen them before.
Yeah.
We've spent them before. We've probably walked over them. We've thrown them in a well, or all those kinds of things. So we know that we've seen them. We just need to access them.
Yeah.
Right. So, we won't take too much time. I'll put you under a little bit more pressure. So, when we're going to score this, I'll give you a hint. There's 5 points for each side.
Oh boy.
Okay? So there should be at least 5 pieces of detail.
Oh boy.
Okay. And if we look at different research from different countries, it comes in from the UK saying that there could be a correlation of how well you do on this test to if you might develop dementia in the future.
Wow.
Right. Wow. So how are you doing when it comes to your drawing? Right. So when we're looking at them and we're saying, okay, did you get the 2 maple leaves? Did you get the one?
I don't know if you can see my front and back.
Very nicely done.
I think I might have committed blasphemy against our queen, but oh boy.
Well, and that's just it. So just to kind of go over, if we have people that are wanting to be doing this and they pause to see it, how they do, I'll give them the answers. So the front of the penny has 2 maple leaves, so they would get a point. Right. There's 1 cent above the leaves, so that's a point. The year is to the left of the leaves. Canada is on the bottom, and there's dots all the way around.
Yeah, I had the dots all the way around. I think that's all I got. I missed the leaves.
And then on the next side, we have the queen's head.
Yeah, I had that.
She's facing to the right.
Damn it. I went left.
It says Queen Elizabeth on the left. We have D. Regina on the right. And again, there's dots all the way around.
I think I had the dots and the queen, and that's about it. I did not do well on this test. I had the words that were wrong.
Now you say that you didn't do well. So are we talking like 8 out of 10, 5 out of 10?
Did you see the drawings? To us? I mean, I think I got the dots around the edge and the queen, and I missed the leaves. I had the words in the wrong spot. I had, but also, I don't know. I don't feel too bad about it because I have when you even said that, I was like, I don't even remember what the penny looks like at all. I was pulling off nothing, but so,
and that's kind of putting you under pressure. So, how did you have any, I know that when I did this, I'm going, oh my gosh, I even have a penny collection. I should know this. Yeah. Right. And, but when we think of it for people that are living with dementia, is that we test them all the time.
Yeah.
How was your day? How were the kids? What did you do this weekend? All of those short-term memory questions. So I have to tell you, I was doing a presentation for the nursing students at the college here.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. We did the information,
Yeah.
and the teacher that was there, he felt that it was so powerful that the next time that I came to do a presentation for them, he actually gave every student a penny, and he carries now a penny with his name tag to be able to remind himself of those penny questions of, does it really matter what they had for breakfast?
Yeah.
How can we make the day-to-day life easier for somebody that's living with dementia? And do we actually have to ask those kinds of questions? So it's kind of a fun little exercise to do.
Yeah.
Is there any merit in saying that, the new information from the UK, sorry? No, there's absolutely, that is not true. There is nothing to say that how well you can draw a penny will decide on your future. But the fact is that when we're saying to people, oh, come with me, we are going to test you for dementia. Based on this test, we'll determine, if you have dementia or not.
Right.
And we wish you luck. Right. So, and that can be really hard and really increase that stress. So again, how can we help people live well? And how can we move to their strengths more than anything else?
Right. And just have a lot of different tests and different ways for all those different people. Like we said already, biodiversity is a hell of a drug, right? Every person on this earth is that's slightly a little bit different from the person beside them, and their body's working a little bit different way and their brain's working a little bit different way. So just finding these ways that work for as many people as possible and give you as much information as possible. And I was really interested when you brought up the baseline testing, and if we're going to start doing that, because something that sports leagues have started to do, like the NHL, and the NHL is why I know this, but they brought in a concussion protocol a couple of years back. And I was very curious, what is this concussion protocol? I used to always hear it on the broadcast, concussion protocol. I didn't know what it was. So I looked into it one time. And what they do at the start of the season is every player does baseline tests, like you talk about, in a bunch of different ways. There's word association, there's pictures, there's a whole bunch of different ones, and they have different kind of categories and how well they score. Because like you say, some guys just naturally aren't very good in one area or another, but they get those baselines. And then when they have spotters in the arena, if they see a hit that looks questionable to them, and that maybe there's a concussion there, they pull them off the ice. They have to go do that baseline. They do the testing, and that tells them in that moment. And that has changed. They talk about how much that small change of adding that in has changed how they go about brain injuries in such a huge way. And it almost makes sense with something like this, even like you say, at a certain age or family history or something, that you should start documenting these types of things so that you are arming yourself with tools for the future, right? It's almost like investing in your own health at a younger age. I really love that idea. I think that's something that maybe not anytime soon, but maybe in the future, I think that is a really cool thing to look at.
Well, and it is, and just hearing you say some of that has brought up a couple of things for me.
Okay.
So one, we talked about how there's many different kinds of dementia, and you bring up brain injury. Brain injury can have a type of dementia, right?
For sure.
So how we kind of connect those, we take a look at, say, Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease scientifically is talking about the plaques and tangles, those proteins that are building up in the brain, causing the brain cells to weaken and die. Okay, so that's removing brain essentially.
Right.
Then you take a look at vascular dementia. Vascular dementia could be when somebody has a stroke or a number of mini strokes causing damages in the brain, right? Then you look at brain damage, and that's why you have so many of these different areas that are crossing over. So you take a look at somebody that has Alzheimer's disease and they are struggling with their executive functioning. Then you take a look at somebody that has had a stroke in their frontal lobe. Then you take a look at somebody that has brain damage and in the frontal lobe as well. So all of those people can all be sitting in the same room and be going, I am struggling with my spouse being able to do this, that, or the other thing. And even though they're not the same type of dementia, they're having similar symptoms happening.
Right.
So that's why we're able to all sit in that same support group and talk about similar things.
Right. Oh, that's very interesting. I think I always knew that there was multiple types. I think when you threw 80 to 100 at me, that threw my brain for a loop, because I could maybe name 5 or 6, like you say, but it's just it shouldn't surprise me because of how much I've looked into biodiversity and all these things. Like it shouldn't surprise me, but somehow it still does on that side. And that's awesome. I really love talking about those warning signs. I think that's just amazing information for people to get out. I'd heard some of them, but then some of them I'd never even thought of before, like wearing the wrong clothing outside for the wrong conditions. Like that's as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, that's a great one. Like that, I bet you, especially where we live, where the weather conditions can be a little bit volatile, I think that'd be a very telling sign for some people. Like we say, everybody's different. Everyone will manifest differently, but it's very interesting. But another area I kind of wanted to ask you about was the brain health and things that people can do. Because I always hear the things like, trying new ways home from work, and that just does all these things. And you see these games like Lumosity and just brain testing games. And I'm just wondering, in what you've seen, how much does that have an impact? Is that something we should all be doing, or is that something that might help, but everybody's so different that it's hard to say?
Absolutely. So I can actually go through some of the areas that we need to take a look at to increase our brain health.
Okay.
And we'll definitely touch on that as well. So if we look at making healthy food choices, right? So we talk about healthy fats and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no special food requirements necessarily for people that are living with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, but what is important is that we eat a wide range of foods that have fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and limit your salt and alcohol and caffeine, plenty of fluids. One of the big diets would be the Mediterranean diet. If you were to go and pick a diet that would be best for your brain health, that's what we've come to understand is the Mediterranean diet.
Interesting.
Being active. So being physically active can help you feel better, reduces your stress, helps you be able to maintain your health that way. It helps to prevent muscle weakness, health complications that are associated with inactivity. So being physical also promotes that normal day-to-day routines that can help improve your mood. All of those kinds of pieces are with that. Staying connected. So making sure that you have social activities to be a part of, whether it's calling a friend or a family member, whether it's making sure that you have an outlet to be able to stay social on however you do that. For something like that, it doesn't matter if you are on the computer having a chat with somebody or, talking over the fence. It's just trying to keep that social interaction. Taking charge of your own health. So making sure that you're having those doctor's appointments, making sure that if something is happening that you bring it up. So I'll put a plug in here for 811. Right? Being able to call HealthLink, and just so anybody knows that if they have any questions regarding dementia, even, you can call HealthLink and there are dementia nurses available to speak with.
Oh, wow.
So you might have to leave a message, but if you call and say, I need to talk to somebody or I have questions regarding dementia, they'll ask you questions, make sure that there's no need to be going to the hospital or anything like that. And then they can put you through to the dementia advice line. So,
oh, wow, that's awesome.
Just to kind of throw that in there.
Yeah, for sure. That's very important.
Reducing your stress. So whether you have a disease or not, it's so important to be able to keep your stress under control. Sure. And when we're looking at stress, that could be, being physically active again helps reduce that stress. Getting support helps reduce stress. Being able to practice relaxation. And then going back to your question about keeping your brain active. So the big question is do we all need to learn to play Sudoku? No. Is it fun to learn something new? Yes, absolutely. Is it good for your brain? Yes, absolutely. But just learning one game or making sure that it is that game. I've never enjoyed doing a crossword. So that's not the game that I'm going to learn. But trying, and it's up to you as to how far you want to go. You could do something as simple as brush your teeth with your opposite hand.
Right. Right.
Brush your hair with your opposite hand that you normally would, right? That
Yeah.
non-dominant hand.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Even this might be a little bit more difficult per se, but try getting dressed in the dark.
Wow.
Be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Don't hurt yourself.
you're
But
using all these other senses to be able to do it, right? And those are really, really simple things to do. Try writing your grocery list with your opposite hand, right? It's really challenging your brain to be able to do these things, because what's happening is that we're creating and I'll throw a phrase out there for you, creating neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And being able to have more of that brain growth per se, right? So do you need to learn a new language? No, have at it if you'd like to, if you have the time to. And yeah, exactly. There's lots of different apps out there to be able to learn new things, but whatever you can be doing to be keeping your brain active is going to be helping so much. Example. So a gentleman says, you know what? I'm good for driving. No problem. I drive to the mall every day and I see my buddies for coffee and I'm okay. I'm not worried about becoming lost. And then we say, well, what if there's construction? Oh,
yeah.
Well, no, then I wouldn't be able to find my way home. Right. And it's like, exactly. Right. So if we think about the brain, and I'll just throw it out there. So if you were new to town and I said, you're at Costco and I need you to meet me at the mall,
right,
you'd probably figure out that getting on the bypass would be the easiest way to get there, and you'd make it there. It'd take a little bit of time, but you get there.
Yeah.
But now if you get to the bypass and you find out there's road construction, it's going to be really hard to be able to find your way up there. Now, if I said, every day, I want you to go from Costco to the mall, and I want you to take a new route every day.
Yeah.
And then, at one point I said, okay, meet me at the mall. You go to take the bypass. Oh, there's construction. They're finally filling that pothole, right? And you have to find a new route. You're able to do it quite quickly, right? So that's the same thing with our brain health, is that if we're able to challenge it often, then we have more options for our brains to map out, for instance. So if we look at our brain as a highway system, and we say that our thought process is our main control. And all of our areas of the brain are connected by highways. So we'll take a look at our thought process and we'll take a look at short-term memory. So that right there, we connect a roadway, right? So if we're going back and forth and I say, what did you have for breakfast this morning? I'll put you on the spot next. So what did you have for breakfast?
I didn't have breakfast. So I guess technically my breakfast was Freshie, which I eat for lunch every day. I don't eat breakfast and I go for Freshie every day for lunch. So it's easy to remember.
Perfect. So with that, we know that roadway, we have, say, a truck that goes from our thought process down to our short-term memory, comes back out through communication, and right away you were able to answer, I didn't have breakfast, but I had Freshie for lunch. Yeah. Right. It was very quick. So now when we look at somebody that's living with dementia, think of that roadway as having boxes that are getting put in the way. So now you have this, say, 18-wheeler truck that the more it drives up and down the road, the more boxes are starting to fall off. So now that's somebody that's living with dementia. So now I ask the same question, what did you have for breakfast? And picture it in your mind that this truck now has to drive around those boxes to be able to get to the information in the short-term memory, and then be able to pick up that information and drive it back out again to be able to get to communication. So that's why when we're giving the information sessions through, for instance, our first link connection, that's something that we talk about. Is the first tip is have patience, because as those, medically speaking, plaques and tangles, those boxes are starting to fall, we need to be able to navigate around them and be able to come back out. So we need a little bit more patience. Right. And that's where people start to ask us, well, is there a cure for Alzheimer's disease? Is there at this time? No, there's not. But there's medications that, if you talk to the doctor, there might be a medication that can assist with some of the symptoms. Because what those medications do is they work like a snowplow, and they push those boxes out of the way per se, right? And it makes that information go through a lot easier again, right? So when we're talking about our brain health and why it's important to be exercising our brain, it's because it's making more ways for the truck to get around those boxes and faster, right? So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of a visual on how to do that, because as dementia progresses, more boxes fall. If somebody's on medication, the snowplow can only work for so long, right? The boxes are still falling, and eventually it'll be blocked off, right? And something sometimes happens in between as those boxes are falling, because we'll say, what did you have for breakfast? And our bodies will naturally can pick up on people that they want an answer, right? So that we get worked up,
pressured up,
and exactly, and we come back and say, I had a hot dog, right? And people are going, you didn't have a hot dog, don't you remember? We went to A&W and you paid, and here's the receipt, and all of that, right? So it can be confusing, because it's like somebody has taken our boxes of memories and dumped them out, and it's just become a mess, right? So that next step from there is when those boxes are blocked off. What did you have for breakfast? And nothing comes out because we can't get to our information.
Right. And would you say, so then in that situation, which I'm sure if somebody's going through this is going to come up with loved ones and stuff, do you think that helps them by trying to take away as much of that pressure when you do ask those questions, which you have to ask to make sure you're checking in and keeping them thinking, like, what did you have for breakfast? Should they be trying as much as they can to keep it carefree and not put any pressure on them or time limits, just to take as much time as you want? Does that help them do that full recall and not get them pressured up where they, just give you an answer because they know you want an answer? Is that something that is helpful at all, or does that not have much impact? It just kind of is what it is.
I think that when we're talking to the people that we're caring for, that to ask the questions until we find that it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because just because somebody has been given a diagnosis of dementia, you're not going to go right from diagnosis to end of life overnight.
Right.
Right. We find that there's a lot of time in between, depending on the different diagnosis.
Yeah.
So to be able to ask those questions in the meantime, I think that that's fair. Right. But if we're really starting to struggle, move on to something else, right? We have other areas of the brain. We have long-term memory, right? So long-term memory is built very similarly, but it's held in a different area of the brain.
Yeah.
So if we have one box in our short-term memory that has all of our files in it, we look at long-term memory and we have many files. We have files that have to go into, say, filing cabinets.
Right.
And those cabinets, just for description, is, say, that they're all in decades. So, when we're talking to people and you ask them a question like, what did you do this weekend? And they say, oh, I went fishing and I had such a good time. And you're going, fishing? You haven't been fishing since you lived on the farm, and you haven't lived on the farm since like the 60s. Right. So you're able to actually go, wait a minute. So instead of saying out loud, you haven't gone fishing since the 60s, we want you to instead say, just take a minute to compose yourself and that kind of thing, but then step into the reality. Say, fishing. Oh, I'd love to go fishing. And what's nice is that you don't even need to know anything about fishing, because they've already said that they want to talk about it. And you can say, well, what kind of fish hooks would you use? Or what kind of fish could you catch?
Yeah.
Or how do you cast a rod?
Yeah.
Right? And you're stepping into what area is working for them already. So when somebody is starting to struggle with what did you have for breakfast, let's not put all this on them. Right. So let's talk about what works for them. So
try and meet them where they are.
Exactly. So move back in time where that's maybe more accessible for them. Right. And we take a look at our reasoning part of the brain, and we have areas that are really important there too. We talk about how, like, our opinions, something as simple as, do you like online banking?
Right.
So that's different for everybody. You'll have people that say, yes, I do. So I get home and I don't want to leave the house, or I can e-transfer, or all those kinds of things. Other people that want to go in. Well, we have a healthy brain and we're able to give those opinions. People with dementia, what they find so often is that they get a diagnosis and then nobody wants their opinion anymore.
Oh,
Because
I see.
it's tainted, right? So we need to be making sure that we're giving opportunity for opinions, right? And we go back to fishing, and to be able to say, what kind of fish hook would you use?
Yeah.
Right. And whether that's, if we have a little bit more knowledge, I have little to none, but would you use a red devil for that, or
a spinner? I don't know.
Exactly,
I'm right with you. I'm right with you. I don't know much about fishing
but
myself.
They might be able to help us with that.
For sure.
Like, we might have the answers, but it always feels good for any person to be able to answer a question, right? It kind of pumps us up a little bit to help and share opinions with people. So it's the same thing with dementia. We take a look at our reasoning again, and I'll stay there for a little bit longer to be able to say, our executive functioning, that's where that area is held as well. So when we're looking at, making that pot of coffee, or even better would be, so for somebody with a healthy brain, if I asked you to move a 4-bedroom house down to a 1-bedroom condo, how would you do that? Right. That's something that everybody does differently. Some people will say, I'm going to make a list. Some people will say, I'm going to start in one room, and that kind of thing. Well, when we look at people with dementia, it's going to be different. That would be a lot more difficult for them. Right. So if we look at our everyday tasks, like kind of those low level functioning tasks, and I said earlier tonight about making coffee, right? So are you a coffee drinker, Nick?
I'm not. I'm a tea drinker. I got my tea right here. And just recently on that too.
Well, I know that to make a cup of coffee, that there's about 5 steps. And correct me if you feel that it's differently. I'm always interested to see what people think. But we know that there's a coffee pot, and that you put water in it. You put your filter in, your coffee grounds, and plug it in, and you're basically ready to go.
Off to the races.
Yeah, exactly. So then you think about it for somebody that's living with dementia, and how many steps is it for them? Where's the kitchen? What does the coffee pot look like? How do I get the water out? Where does the water come from? What do I put the water in? How do I get the grounds in? What do I scoop them with? Where are they in the kitchen? So say they have 25 steps. So when we're looking at these low-level processing tasks, and then we put them to our higher level executive functions, like moving that house, if somebody is struggling to make a cup of coffee, please don't ask them to move a 4-bedroom house down to a 1-bedroom condo, right? But there's always things that they can do. And I love to be able to compare it to making a turkey dinner, because I say that, at the beginning, stay out of my kitchen. I don't need your help. I'll let you know when supper's ready, right? But as dementia progresses, I'm going to need help making that turkey, because it might not be safe for me to do that by myself, right? But as things go, I can still peel potatoes, do carrots, fold napkins, and it doesn't matter what stage of dementia that I'm at, I can always taste the gravy, right? Let me be a part of things. There's always something that I can do. My tasks just need to be adjusted for what I need in the moment.
Right. And that's so important. I really love how you broke that down. Just that I've never thought about it that way, about the steps and what goes through somebody's mind that's in that place and needs to do. I've just never put it that way. And it's just, that's an awesome way to do it. I feel like that's how I'm going to describe it to everybody from this point on, which is great. But I think another important point in there too is, like you say, everybody's going to manifest differently and everybody's going to have different issues. But I think what's important too is there's going to be things that they carry with them. And I think from what I've seen, and again, stop me if I'm wrong, but a lot of things that has been a big part of their life for a long time, like fishing, like whatever their passions are. A lot of times that is so deep seated in their long-term memory that they can pull that back and to find ways to still make them feel useful by having those things that they are holding on to that they can still do, and really elevating those, and make sure you're placing value on those so they can still feel like they are validated and are still productive. Because I feel like that's got to be one of the worst parts, is just that feeling of not being able to do those things that you were. And that really hit home when you talked about their opinion not being taken and people not asking for their opinion. Because it's hard to put yourself in those people's shoes, but I would imagine that would be one of the hardest parts, is just feeling that, like you said, everybody wants to be taken seriously and have their opinion be validated. That's just part of human nature. You're gonna want that in your life, and to lose that, that's a huge piece. And whatever little people can do to add that back into their lives in different ways, that'd be hugely impactful, I would imagine, for their mental health and for them getting through it as positively as you can. And if they're doing well, you're going to be doing well. Everybody wants to see it's a family, it's a group thing. You need everybody working as best as possible. So it's not just for them, it's for you, it's for everybody around.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a term for that. It's called being person-centered.
Okay.
So and when we're talking about being person-centered, we're trying to remember that that the person with dementia is a person.
Yeah.
Right. And it really is the person first.
Right.
And dementia is just a part of that person. And there was somebody, his name was Thomas Kitwood. And he identified 6 things that people living with dementia, and even people that aren't living with dementia, that they need to be able to foster personhood. So that is, love, comfort, identity, occupation, inclusion, and attachment. So what that means is that there's love in the center of it all. Right. And they actually call it the Kitwood flower. So if you kind of picture the center of your flower, and knowing that every person, that they require love and they deserve to be loved, right? To be able to have the comfort. So, people experience loss. So it's okay for them to be sad, but we just need the reassurance, right?
Yeah.
That these things are all okay, that they have that identity.
Yeah.
Every person has their own life story, right? What they've done. And for the person that is caring for them, that's really important for them to know that. When we talk about having the ability to have an opinion, that's part of that occupation.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of being able to have that job, and being able to have the inclusion. And that's more than just being physically present. It's being able to have the opportunity to participate in those social environments and those purposeful and meaningful ways. And the attachment piece is being able to foster feelings of safety and security. And when we really are able to connect with somebody that's living with dementia, it's so important to know, and that's probably the biggest piece of having a diagnosis early on, is being able to really have a voice through it all. So as we're educating families on knowing all of these areas of person-centeredness and how important they are, and I go back to the opinions, right? Being able to have those opinion questions, we're able to share more information. So we're able to share, where are we from? What did we do? So for my grandma, she was always one that wanted to help, right? So when she had dementia, the care home would be calling us saying, what do we do with her? She's driving us up the wall. And my mom would say, just let her help. Yeah. She just wants to feel valued. Yeah. So they'd bring her a bin of towels and say, Mildred, could you please help us? We're short-staffed today. Would you mind, folding some towels? Yeah. And she would happily do it. Yeah. And then they'd come and they'd pick them up, they'd take them, they'd unfold them and say, Mildred, we're still, struggling. Yeah, we need Can you help us with one more time? And she'd happily do it. So That's it's being able to find those occupation pieces to help people. Yeah. And we find that there's many different areas that people can really succeed in the more that we know. And sometimes families will say to us, my person, the person I'm caring for has moved into care, so I actually don't need your support anymore. And we try to educate them and say, actually, there's a lot of different areas that can still be supported when moving into care. And the rebuttal that we might get is, well, they're no longer speaking and they're not communicating anymore. So we're
Right.
not, what can you offer us?
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that we can offer is educating on emotional memories. And I'm not sure if that's something that you're familiar with.
I don't think so.
Okay. So emotional memories are things that are activated by our five senses. So
Okay.
sight,
Right.
touch, taste, sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not affected in the brain by dementia. Right.
Oh,
So that's really interesting, is that there's no road to emotional memories. Right.
right.
So then there's no
Right.
boxes that can fall on that road,
That's
just like
super
there is
interesting.
in all different areas of the brain.
So probably just
So
having their family come and hear their voices, even smell their smells, right? Like they might not even react to it, but just to know that within them, that some sense of familiarity, it just takes that little
yeah.
bit of that stress and that confusion and that fear away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and when we think about our past,
Mm-hmm.
what's there? We have good emotional memories, we have bad emotional memories. For me, a couple of good ones would be my grandma lived with us from the time that I was born. We had a farm and all that kind of stuff. So there was lots of things happening.
Yeah.
And we would get off the bus and come in, and she'd be baking bread. So the house would smell of fresh bread and all those kinds of things. And I'd make sure that I wouldn't tell my brothers. So then I'd get the heels of the bread, and we have fresh butter and honey and all those really good things.
Yeah.
And now 20 years later, I go into the grocery store, and if I walk by the bakery, that smell of baking bread, it feels like my body is just giving itself a nice warm hug, right?
Yeah.
And that's that emotional memory that's doing it.
It is.
So we take that and we hold that and say, okay, this is a good emotional memory. And we know where there is good, there's always an opposite, right?
Oh, yeah.
So now you take a look at someone that maybe was in a house fire.
I can give you a good one right now.
Okay, absolutely.
I'm from Slave Lake, and in 2011, the town burned down. There was a forest fire that went right through, and I was actually on a podcast just a couple weeks ago talking about this. When I smell that it's a very particular forest fire smell, I get anxiety. I start to sweat. My stomach feels like it's dropped out, and it's just one of those things where it's just it's automatic. And it's not just any fire. If I go by a campfire, it's not the same smell. It's a very particular one. But as soon as I smell it, it brings everything back from that time. Right? It's amazing what your body does and what your mind can do.
So now, perfect. So now picture this. So you have dementia, you're in a care home, and I'm trying to be super helpful. And I notice, oh, Nick, your hands feel cold. Why don't you come with me? Let's go sit, warm ourselves by the fire. And now you're kicking and screaming, and you can't communicate fully. You're scratching me. You've now become aggressive, and you're labeled as a spitter and all these kinds of things. But then when we actually research it and realize, no, Nick was part of a massive fire,
right?
And that could be bringing up negative emotional memories.
Exactly. Right? Especially when you don't have a lot of input coming in. So when that's the only emotion that comes up, and you haven't felt a lot of strong ones that have impacted you in that way for a while, like that's got to be I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. That just, that's heartbreaking to think of,
it's
right?
amazing. Even how your skin maybe feels just knowing that, right? So now we take a look at people that have come from war, people that have had different traumas, sexual abuse, those kinds of things. There was a care home that they'd ring a dinner bell, and a guy would always go under the table, and they couldn't figure out why. And they ended up finding out later on through the family that he associated that with an air raid.
Wow.
Right. So now instead they say, please join us in the dining hall.
Yeah.
Right?
Just the small things you can do.
Yeah.
That make a world of difference.
And same thing with people in uniform. That can really frighten people. Yeah. So there's different care homes that one actually has great big pink pullover hoodies that all the emergency personnel put on. Awesome. So then it makes it not look the same. Yeah. So people that have had bad experiences or, again, you put it to war, they're not able they're able to relax a little bit more because they're not noticing it. Right. So it's amazing different things. And you take a look at somebody that say was part of, I know that the Holocaust was a time ago, but dementia has also been for a long time as well. There was a lady that they were bringing here for a bath, and all that she sees is white walls and silver shower heads, and they can't figure out what's going on, right? So that's all these negative emotional memories. So when we're educating families, we talk about how important it is to look and talk about all those bad things that have ever happened in life. Right? Because how can we reduce that stress? Right. So if we can instead have some fresh bread instead of asking you to come and sit by the fire, there's huge things that we are communicating in different ways. So it's a really powerful thing to talk about. And I think that that's one of my favorite pieces to discuss with families is brainstorming. So part of what we do is we have a program called First Link. And First Link, it's both a referral program and a self-referral. So regardless how you get to us, whether you are referred by a doctor or you've heard of us on a podcast and called in, we call every 6 months to see how you're doing. So we call it 6, 12, 18, and then we move from 18 to annual, because our goal is that after 18 months of calling, that we really hope that we've been able to build enough rapport that families will reach out to us as well. So when we're calling and we're talking to people, and we're talking about when somebody's in care or something like that, and we break it down and we talk about the emotional memories and making memory boxes and things like that. And there's nothing, I tell you, Nick, there's nothing like the sound in someone's voice when they have hope and they are excited and cannot wait to go and see their loved one at the care home and be able to bring them, a jar of wheat to be able to run their hands in.
Or you see those amazing videos of people showing songs that have an impact to them. Like I can picture this one video, I can't remember where it was, but of showing this older gentleman that hadn't been very responsive for a long time, was non-vocal, and I can't remember if he started dancing along or singing along even to the song. And it was just, and you see the family just bawling, because that is such an emotional experience to go through. But like you say, like, it's just so positive that you can do that for them if you put in that work and you try and you don't give up. That's just so important.
Music is incredible. There was a gentleman that his wife wasn't communicating very often, and put the music on and stood up and danced. And at the end of it, she said, "Well, you were a little out of step, but it was nice." And then sat down and wasn't speaking again.
Wow.
So it's amazing how that muscle memory can carry you through. So even, I might not be able to tell you the artist and the song title, but I can sing a way through it. Right. So it's so powerful, and how songs can bring us back to different moments in time and things like that. It's pretty awesome when we're able to help families make those connections. So.
And so much of what we've discussed, it all kind of comes back to that person-centricness that you brought up, that idea. Somebody's experience of going through this can be so vastly different depending on what the people around them do, and if they know these things, if they're armed with this information, right? Like to bring those emotional memories back in a positive way, like that can 100% change how somebody experienced going through something like this that is scary and difficult. And just to know that work is worth it, right? I feel like that, I think we already talked, was the start of just that hopeless feeling that is natural to come up, but just to be armed with this, it's not hopeless. There are things you can do. There's really, really positive things that are going to have an impact. Just to know that is so much different than going through it just knowing like, oh, well, there's not much we can do. I feel like that just those two things is such a different experience. Just knowing that there's, even if it's not a cure-all pill, but just something to give you hope almost. It gives you, I can't even find the right word for it, but I think it's just so important, and it's so interesting to hear about that, because it's something that I've thought about and probably could have assumed, but not to this degree of just putting it all together and all the work that you have to do. It's It's amazing to hear. I love this conversation. It's so fun.
Oh,
It's so,
well, I'm very happy to be here. And
yeah.
like I said, I bring my soapbox pretty well everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
great
that's
to be able to
important.
have a spot that I can be kind of sharing my passions about the
Yeah.
position and
Yeah.
things like that as well. And you know, when and it seems like it doesn't matter what part of dementia that we're talking about, we always have different information that can help with it all. Like
Yeah.
even when somebody's saying, you know, I feel like I don't know if I should be moving my person into care or what I should be doing. We have a toolkit that is all on moving into care. So it's whether you're considering the move, preparing for the move, moving day, adjusting after the move. You know, it's breaking it down to say, you know, for instance, considering the move, there's a care partner checklist to say, how am I doing?
Yeah.
Everybody always has their own line in the sand. Nobody's two lines are the same, and they shouldn't be.
Mhm.
You know, what one person says is okay is going to be different than the next person.
Right.
And if somebody says, you know, I want my person to stay home as long as they possibly can, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to help try to get you resources to be able to do that. If other people say, no, you know, once it becomes to this level of progression, I know
Mhm.
I can't handle that. And
Yeah.
that's okay. But
Yeah.
what is most important is that we're able to give the information step
Mhm.
by step. And that's why we call every 6 months, because I couldn't imagine getting a bucket of information at the
Yeah.
beginning and say, you know, we wish you luck.
Mhm.
Please donate, right? But we're able to have those conversations. So we're able to talk about the importance of looking at different care homes. We're able to talk about on moving day what you should take a look at, and going back to the emotional memories and things like that. How
Mhm.
can we make sure that their room is set up for them
Right.
to succeed?
Right.
Right? Change is going to be difficult regardless,
Mhm.
right? The your sock drawer might not be in the same spot as it was before. You might
Right.
not be able to have that. So your brain is already trying to scramble to say, what is this new environment?
Mhm.
I've never had a bathroom there before. I'm confused, right? But yet, if we can have the same comforter, if we can have our same chair, if we can
Yeah.
have, you know, those other things that give us comforts of home,
Yeah.
because that's something that comes up often is if you've heard somebody say, I want to go home,
Yeah.
right? How
Yeah.
often do we hear that
Oh.
saying? And those are all things that we talk about,
Mhm.
because we actually have found out that as people progress and they say that they
Mhm.
want to go home, that might not necessarily mean that they're wanting to go back to, you know, a specific address. It could
Right.
just mean that they're needing more
Comforts.
security and
Yeah.
comfort and security.
Mhm.
Exactly. So again, those are all different things that we're able to help support families. And a
Right.
big part of it too is knowing that what worked once might not work
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
but we're always willing to be there to try to brainstorm new ideas
Yeah.
of things that can work to help. So
And I think another thing that I think would add benefit to checking in every 6 months, like you said, everybody's got their line, right, of what it is. But I think also that changed because I think people, as much information as you can give people, you don't know what this journey is going to be like until you get into it. So somebody might think, you know, I want to keep them at home as long as I can and all that, and then when they get into it, it's different, and maybe there's other stresses and that changes, and maybe what they thought was going to be their line, that line changed once they get into it, right? Or maybe somebody
mhm.
saw, as soon as they're nonverbal, I can't handle it. But then when the time comes and they're into it, and they see the different signs of it, they say, oh, I need them at home as long as I can. I'll change these things. So I think always checking in with them and letting them know that that's okay. You don't have, if this is your line now, that might change in the future, and that's okay too. We're here to support with whatever it is.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you take a look at our situation, and so my grandma, again, vascular dementia, multiple mini strokes, things
Right.
like that. So so you take a look at her as a person, and then you
Mhm.
take a look at our family dynamic. So we had a decent sized farm,
Mhm.
plus we had a gravel pit. So we had mom, dad, 4 kids,
Mhm.
hired hands, plus grandma,
Yeah.
and you know, we're all little. We're not adult children. So when my grandmother became incontinent, it was like, I already have kids in diapers, or those kinds of things. Like I cannot take more on my plate. And we take a look at that caregiver stress. And when somebody moves into care, one of the parts that we really try to put out to the families is that it is okay to become the loved one. It is okay to return to the status of wife or husband or daughter. It's okay, because you don't have to be the nurse. You don't have to be the cook. You don't have to be the maid.
Right.
Now you can have a good night's sleep, get some rest, and just go and visit and love. And being able to give that permission to be able to do that is sometimes important. That families, they need to hear it. And there's something called ambiguous loss and grief, right? So being able to recognize that every time that you can't find that word, there's a little bit of grief. Knowing that you have to get somebody to come over to watch your person for you to be able to get groceries. There's grief to that. There's, that they've walked out and they've become lost. Those are huge areas of grief. And, we're not counselors. We're here to have a listening ear and to try to help. And maybe the resource that you need is to a counseling service. We can help with that. But it's being able to kind of walk through all those steps and know that grief all the way through is okay. And that people grieve differently. And that, sometimes when we come to end of life and somebody says, I feel bad because I'm not grieving. I don't think how I'm supposed to be grieving.
Right.
Well,
there's no such thing.
People grieve differently all the way through, and that's okay. So it's nice to be able to have those support groups as well that can help say, I understand.
Right.
This happened to me too, or when this happened, this is what I did. And that's the silver lining of COVID, I think, is that we were forced to change. One of our changes is that we put all of our support groups online. Right. So now, one of the things that we've been really trying to do is find ways to access rural and isolated areas to ensure that everyone has access to the society. Well, now, as long as you have internet, you can join a support group. I was adding somebody today to the reminder list, so then they would get a reminder email of when the support group is happening. And I looked, and for our afternoon support groups, there's almost 700 people.
Wow.
That are getting reminders to join some of our support groups. So we have people that are just registering, and we have volunteers that help facilitate the groups. So people register, and we just keep making groups and making groups and making sure that people have places to go.
Right.
So it's incredible. That's
awesome.
That's definitely a silver lining that we have. And we have support groups for care partners. We have support groups. Something that we haven't touched on is with dementia is that you can have something called young onset. So that's when somebody under the age of 65 is diagnosed. So we have support groups for young onset as well, because there'll be times that, you're 40 years old and you come into a support group and it's like, I don't feel like I belong because people are older in this support group. Well, that's okay. We actually we've specialized some groups for young onset. So there's always a place for someone. So.
And that young onset, that is something that I wanted to talk about, because my personal journey with Alzheimer's and dementia, my first touch with my grandpa got it, but I was so young at that point that I couldn't really grasp what it was. It was honestly the parts that, I'm thankful for this, because the parts that I remember were the humor of it, right? Like, because he was all the way through, he was a very happy guy. He always was. And some of the stuff and some of the laughs we got to have, because he just liked to have a laugh. If it was at his expense, he didn't mind. He never did. And that was something, when you talk about feeling useful and that sort of thing, I feel like it can be as simple as that, of just, being able to make people laugh is something he enjoyed. And that's what I remember. And then my grandma on that side got it. And I was a little bit older, and I could deal with it. And I remember going to visit, and I think my mom wasn't in the room and I walked in and I could see the look in my grandma's face. And this is my grandma, she lived in BC, so I didn't get to see her and was always just the happiest. She loved us so much, with so much love there. And I could see fear. And I'm a kid. And why is my grandma scared? But she didn't recognize me. Right. And then when my mom came in, she kind of recognized my mom and but that was a big turning point. I was like, oh, this is something different. Cause I just had never seen that. And I grew with it and had seen it, but I'd never really seen early onset or seen someone deal with it maybe in a different situation than kind of what I was as a grandchild to a grandparent, which I think was very different. But then recently I was listening, one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, it's a bunch of comedians out of New York. And the leader of the podcast, his name is Andrew Schultz, and his dad has Alzheimer's. And for a while he didn't talk about it, but then slowly he would start just throwing in little pieces and he got more comfortable talking about it. And then he would talk about it on the podcast and his relationship with his dad. And it really gave me a new sense on it. I feel like with podcasts, they're so intimate that you get a real look into what it's like for that person. And he lives in Manhattan and his dad grew up in Manhattan. And like you say, it's interesting when you're talking about the long-term memory, because he talks about his dad, how he can walk around Manhattan because he grew up there since he was a kid. And that's all locked in his long-term memory. But now he's moved down to Miami and he can't have his dad come visit because he doesn't know where he won't know where he is. Whereas when he's in New York, he has so much more self-sufficiency, right? As long as he's within his bubble of Manhattan, he can navigate, he can get places. Sometimes there's issues and he talks about that. And what I really like about that is the humor part. And this is something I wanted to ask you about, because I feel like with everything, humor is, they say laughter is the best medicine, right? That old cliche, but I do feel like humor is one of those things that can get you through. And for my family, we are a very humorous family. We like to make each other laugh. And that was something that helped us through it when we were dealing with it. And then I see how they deal with it and they laugh about it a lot and they make jokes at their own expense. And I'm just curious, from what you've seen, I'm sure everybody doesn't bring humor into it. I'm sure it's too tough of a subject for somebody, but I'm sure you've seen it I would guess that you've seen that be a tool that some people use. And I'm curious, in what you've seen, how does humor and being able to laugh about situations impact people and their journey?
So I think that, when we're able to tell jokes and things like that, it's like there's two different pieces to it. There's being able to recreationally enjoy people's time and having laughter.
Right.
And then there's the confidence of a support group where people can say, you wouldn't believe the day that I had.
Yeah.
And that if you don't want to cry, you laugh.
Yeah.
And then other people say, you know what? That happened to me. And then this happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're able to be kind of laughing about the situation,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily for what it is exactly, but just being able to have that comfort of, we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And this really sucks.
Yeah.
But I know that it sucks for you too.
Mm-hmm.
And we can say, I can't believe that this is the day that I'm having.
Yeah.
Right. And they're able to use the laughter to be able to bring that through. And some people can have that laughter and some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that laughter definitely has a place for it. And there's the strength that different care partners have to be able to bring that forward and to be able to share their experiences. So there's definitely always a place for it. And for somebody that doesn't know dementia, to be able to come into a support group where people are laughing about the things that have happened in their day, and they'd probably be like, holy Hannah, where did I just come into? Because it's a really unique environment to be able to have. So that is that safety net that people have when they come to a support group, is that I know that when I go in there, that I am safe and secure, knowing that people have had these different experiences. And you can have great people, and there's times that in support groups that they don't actually talk about what's going on, that they just relax. Right. And with talking about laughter and it being, that best medicine, we had a support group in Edmonton, and pre-COVID, and it was a guys group, and they all had dementia, and they all got together. They cracked open their New Year beers and had some popcorn or whatever, and played games and just kind of sat around and talked about the good old days, right?
Yeah.
And those jokes, that laughter, and that kind of thing, it doesn't stop just because you have dementia. There's still so much. Yeah. So knowing that they had a place to go, right? It's, again, just finding those opportunities that are there. And I like to put a shout out to a gentleman that is living with dementia. And I want to just put a little part to say that everybody can do something. So his name is Roger Marple. He's from down in the Medicine Hat area. Yeah. And my understanding is that he has dementia and started going to support groups, and then wanted to do more. So then started volunteering for us. He has helped write the Charter of Rights for people with dementia. He has helped with some of our brochures, like memory tips and tricks. Yep. And he now actually sits on our board of directors. That's awesome. That there's no stopping him, right? Like, you know, if you want to still make a difference, if you still want to have a voice and things like that, it's not, like I said earlier, you don't get a diagnosis and pass away the next day. There's lots of life to live in there. And sometimes for people like Roger, it's dementia has given him a whole purpose that he might not have had in his life otherwise. So right. Oh, that's so amazing. It's powerful. It is. It's very powerful. I think so much of what we talked about is powerful. And I think with the humor, right? Like we said, some people it might work, some people it might not. It seems like a lot of what we talked about, there's such a wide array of tools, and it's almost like everybody has a different toolbox that's going to work for them, right? Certain things, you know, laughter just might not fit for that person, right? That might not be what they need, but there's all these different things you can do. And I feel like that's kind of, it goes back to that person-centric thing. What is of this wide array of tools? What are the things that are going to work for this person, and what can we do to find better and better tools to make sure that they are as comfortable and as happy and as fulfilled as possible? And I'm curious, maybe I can turn this into a question instead of just me talking to myself here. I wonder, of all those tools that work for different people, what are some, and maybe it's in terms of tools, maybe it's just information. What do you think are the most, what's the word? Like, broadly applicable, right? Like what are the information or the tools that work for the most people, right? Like we say, every tool is not going to work for every person, but what are the ones that maybe, as you've seen, are the most effective and that work for most people? Like the information that if you could only you only have 5 minutes to talk to someone, if you had to just give them a couple tips and a couple things, what are those ones that would be almost your elevator pitch of what you would tell somebody? So I would say that, we have something called a book. It's called All About Me. And it is a great way to put all of your information into one space. Right. And before I started with the society, I didn't think about things further in life. I thought about, you know, just our regular day to day. But when I think about what do I want people to know about me? So when I need someone to take care of me, that I'm happy. And I thought, my socks. Yeah. My socks are very important to me. And I never realized how important that they were. So the dirty little secret, Nick, I change my socks a couple of times a day. If that's what makes you tick, that's great. I love it. I have an extra pair of socks in my desk. If I have to work late or I'm doing a presentation, put on a fresh pair of socks and I'm comfortable. I have an extra pair of socks in my car. Yeah. You know, those kinds of things. And it's looking into yourself to say what is most important to you. Right. And being able to share that information. Now, if you're looking for, you know, really quick, easy things to remember, there's things called, and, you know, we try to update language and things like that. This document, it doesn't necessarily have the updated language, so bear with me. But so the 10 absolutes of dementia, we say, agree, never argue. Right. Divert, instead of try to reason your way out of something.
Right.
Somebody that doesn't have the ability to reason, you're not going to be able to reason with them. Use methods of, so distract, never shame.
Right.
Reassure someone instead of trying to lecture.
Yeah.
Reminisce with them instead of saying, don't you remember? Repeat things instead of the I told you. Do what they can. Never say that you can't. And always ask, never demand, encourage instead of condescend, and always reinforce instead of force. Wow. So those are kind of the steps that we really find can be helpful to people that are living with dementia.
Oh, that was awesome. That was a much better answer than I was expecting. I thought that was going to be a tough one. I thought it was going to stump you there, and then you had
I get a point.
home run. Yeah, you had a home run waiting in you. Oh, that's awesome. I'm curious.
I've been waiting my whole life to hit a home run.
Yeah, there you go. You did it right there, right there. I'm sure everyone that's listening is going to agree with me. I'm curious for you, since 2017 and getting into this line of work, how has it affected you personally? What have you learned about yourself maybe in doing this, and maybe just understanding more about what you went through personally and how it affects people? I'm just curious because I can't imagine you could do something that's you're so passionate about clearly and so deep into that it wouldn't change you in some way.
So would you believe that I'm shy?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't believe it today, but maybe the conversation before we started, I'd believe you.
Yeah. So I've always enjoyed people, and I didn't realize how much I truly like being a part of people's lives. And I think that that's the biggest thing. I've said a couple of times tonight that my grandma lived with us, and she was like a mom to me. So she moved out of grandma status and moved into mom status. And I never really had grandparents. So one of my favorite pieces of all of this is how many seniors I get to meet. And it's like, I treat them all like grandparents, and I love to talk to them. And it's like, how is the sunshine today? Tell me a story. And those kinds of things. And it just pumps me up. Like every month we make these phone calls. So I've said, we call every 6 months. So calling 8,000 people every 6 months, that's a lot of people. So sure when everybody, all the client service teams gets lists of people to call, and that's what we get to do. So I've, prior to working for the Alzheimer's Society, I was in administration and reception and lean management and those kinds of things. And I always enjoy talking to people. And that was a big part of it. So now I get to visit for a living. I get to go and flip burgers and, volunteer at hockey games and sell 50-50 tickets. I get to go into care homes again, pre-COVID, and shoot a game of pool. It's awesome. I love it, and know that I am able to help families connect when they feel like the method of connection is gone. So actually there's right now, so the month of March, Co-op has a coin box program that's running for us, and anytime that people donate, they can write their name on a forget-me-not flower, and it goes up on the window. And I was driving by there the other day, and I was almost in tears because of how well it's doing. Like the windows are just plastered, and my daughter says to me, "Mom, I hope that you never get another job, because nothing can fill you as much as this job does." She says, I cannot imagine you working anywhere else because you love it so much. And it's really true that it fills you in ways that you would never know. There's definitely times that you hang up with somebody and you really have to give yourself a moment.
Take a moment, for sure.
And there's times like people will come into my office and they're not too sure about the whole thing. And I know that I cannot count the amount of times that I've said, the bravery that you have walking through the door is the biggest thing that you had to do today. But know that 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 you're talking to somebody that cares, and that
Mhm.
I might cry, you
Yeah.
might cry, we might cry together. I might
Yeah.
cry and you might not be crying,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that we're here,
Yeah.
right? So I might not have the answers.
Hmm.
I might have to look for other colleagues, but I know that I'm a big enough person to say I don't know, but I would love
Right.
to find out for you.
Hmm.
And thank you so much for giving me the chance
Oh, yeah.
to be able to find out the answers for you. So it has been
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
huge growth for me as a person, as a mom. There's so many things that I think about at work and go, oh, I could do that at home.
Yeah. 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 It all
Right.
rolls
So
together. Hey.
yeah, and there's so many times that sharing stories and those
Mhm.
kinds of things have really brightened the day. And I'd like to be able to say that you know, how do I say that I've proved my dad wrong, in a sense that he said, "Oh, I don't know, this job might be really tough for you. You're really emotional,
Yeah.
and how are you going to do?" And I think that people are okay with that.
Hmm.
That it's okay to show that emotional side of things,
Yeah. That
because
emotional connection is crucial.
well, and sometimes it helps you fight harder for somebody too,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So being able to have that, and I'd say over the last 3.5 years that there's been many connections made,
I
and a lot
bet.
of laughs and a lot of tears
Oh
and
yeah.
things like that. And it's
Hmm.
been really good for me, and I'm so excited. And it's, I went to drop my daughter off at a friend's house,
Uh-huh.
and the mom opens the door and they're like, "You're the Alzheimer's Society lady."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been labeled.
That's a good
And
moniker to have.
so right.
Yeah.
So when people are starting to notice you in a community of 80,000 people as somebody that they've heard and been able to listen to, or
Yeah.
they've been able to make changes in their lives because of things that we've been able to say and to teach them,
Mhm.
it's an incredible feeling. So
Oh, I bet.
it's definitely a grateful place to be.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that if you didn't bring up, because I could tell from the second we started, like, but even before we started recording, we're just talking about it, the passion that you have, and it's so obvious in looking in your eyes when you talk about it, and just how positive impact that would be. I just, for somebody to open up, I feel like to receive help, you have to be a little bit open. And I feel like for a lot of people, that's probably a scary time. It's hard to open up to people. And I feel like having someone like yourself that is so clearly passionate and caring and really wants to help you, and is plain as day, no other motivations other than they want you to succeed and be as happy and functional as possible. I feel like that would just be so amazing. I just feel like if I ever go through that, I would want to walk through the door and see you, right? Like that is exactly what you need. And I feel like for a lot of things, what determines how well they do could be how well they can connect with that person. And for someone like yourself to be that open to that connection, I feel like that probably pays itself off in spades. Like that, I just, I'm very impressed. I'm blown away. You've knocked this out of the park. I knew this is going to be a fun conversation today, but I didn't even in my wildest dreams imagine it would be this amazing. So hopefully the people listening are seeing that too. And if they're feeling motivated to help, how can people help with this? How can people help the societies? Is that the best way? Do you guys do fundraisers? What's the best way for people to kick in their 2 cents, or their weekends, or whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
We have, so one, volunteering. If somebody wants to volunteer, we're a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
organization. So when we take a look at it, the generosity of our donors takes us a long way. So
Right.
we need, and donations come through people's time. It comes through people's funds. It comes through many different ways. So whether you want to volunteer in an event, whether you want to volunteer as a facilitator at a
Mm-hmm.
support group, all of that's available. And all of this information that I give during this part of the segment is available again on our website at
Right. Mm-hmm.
alzheimer.ab.ca.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also donations. Again, huge part. I think the last time that I checked, we were over 85%
Wow.
funded by the generosity of our donors.
Wow. So that's
Right.
hugely
So
important. That's almost
yeah,
100%. Like that is,
well, exactly.
wow.
And I think now that I say that out loud, I think that I was corrected the last time that I said that, and our finance corrected me at 89%. So
Wow. Even
the
closer.
numbers are huge.
Wow. So
And
donations are a big part of what keeps you bringing these amazing services. And when we talked about earlier that more and more people are being referred, it's probably stretching you guys, and you probably need more donations and more people stepping up to help you guys as well right now.
absolutely. And there's different ways too. So if you want to be a part of an event, like we have the IG Wealth Management Walk for Alzheimer's that's coming up.
Okay.
We're doing that for the month of May. You can go on and join a team. You can donate in general, those kinds of things. And, not everybody has a whole lot of money right now. So we totally understand that. And if they are able to give, we're very grateful. There's donation receipts for all of those. Sometimes people think, I can't donate now, but I'd love to be able to donate later. And when they're talking about doing up their wills and things like that, that's where they could be putting in a bequest or those kinds of things as well. Some people say, well, I can't give a lot, but I could maybe give $10. Well, we have monthly giving programs too. So if you wanted to just do a $10 donation and it comes out of your account every month, we can do that. We can find different ways. We have different events that happen throughout the year. Like I said, the walk is virtual this year as it was last year.
Yeah.
So we're actually doing it for the whole month of May. And I'll give a shout out to my niece and nephew, Marin and Davis McLeod. They are our poster child this year. And it's exciting because they're holding a picture saying, we're walking in Grande Prairie, and they're standing on a trampoline. And for the walk last year, the goal that Marin had was to do 100 handstands. And she was so excited to say, Auntie Jen, guess what? I learned how to do a backflip. I'm going to do 100 backflips to help raise awareness and to try to end stigma. And sure enough, she was there, and we have it on video, and it was broadcasted across Canada.
Oh, that's awesome.
Of this kid doing, 100 backflips, and her brother's right there doing, the bum busters on the trampoline and things like that, just trying to find different unique ways to be able to do that. And we have I put a shout out to some friends on Facebook, and one of them even came back and sent me a video. And I want to say that she was maybe in Grand Cache and climbed a mountain to say, hey, I'm climbing a mountain for dementia awareness. And it's anybody can do so many different things, just to try to put it out there. So even if you don't have the money to necessarily donate, being able to spread the word that people are not alone is huge. To try to reduce the stigma is huge. For us to be able to change language is huge. Nobody wants to be placed, and nobody wants to go to a facility, right? So how can we talk about things differently and things like that? So we definitely need the donations in all different ways and different currencies, right? So there's lots of different pieces that way, and keep an eye out for us. We're always doing different things. We're hoping that as COVID restrictions loosen up and we're able to kind of get back to our normal, you'll be able to see different pieces that we do. We have something called the Alzheimer's Face Off that normally happens every year in April. It's an amazing event, I have to say. We have hockey players that come, and the teams that raise the most amount of money get to do the first round picks. So we do a draft, right? And the highest teams get the first pick of the drafts, and then they play for a weekend.
Oh, cool.
So can you imagine going and having a hockey tournament with, these famous hockey players and stuff like that?
Cool.
So last year, our tournament, we had to put it on hold. So that's, $1.4 million
Wow.
that was
Missing
put
out
on
on.
hold.
Yeah.
So being able to find different ways to support us is definitely helpful. So if people have it in them to give and to be able to do that, they can donate online. They can drop off at our office, things like that. There's lots of different ways that they can do that. And again, if somebody wants to volunteer, they can reach out to the office here in town. They can call our number at if it's I'll give the toll-free number. It's 1-866-950-5465, and they can call us or email and reach out to us at reception@alzheimer.ab.ca. So
awesome. That's perfect. I mean, I'm glad there's so many different ways that people can help. And if they are donating, that'd be cool to just if people are if you're listening to this and you heard it here and you want to support, that'd be cool if you when you donate, just say, hey, I heard it on the VonDubCast and I wanted to help out. I think that'd be cool. And I gotta just hearing you talk there, I had a couple ideas going in my mischievous brain here of ways we could maybe do something for the walk and that with the podcast too. So I'm excited to help out. I like I said, I had high expectations for this episode, but I didn't ever think I'd be that amazed by just the content and the type of things I learned today. I can't thank you enough for coming on. That blew my expectations way out of the water. I think really people are going to really learn something and be able to take it in. Like I said at the very start, I think a lot of times we try and fire hose people with information and it just doesn't sink into those deeper levels. I think some of the ways that we brought some of this information to light today is really going to sink in with people and is really going to impact people. And I think some of the tips you gave are going to be hugely impactful. And what I love about it is it might not be impactful for 5-10 years, but eventually down the road, they might have heard something here that's going to help them. And I feel like that is what's so cool about conversations like this is they're going to sit there for as long as I keep paying the bills, I guess, for the hosting site, it'll stay up online there forever. And people can come back and maybe somebody will listen to it. And then they see their friend is going through, is being impacted and they can recommend it to them and they can, it'll just be another place where information lives for people. Like you say, there's so much information out there and it's just heartbreaking to hear that people would have needed these tools and this information and didn't know that it was there. It was sitting right behind that fence and it's just ignorance that kept them away from it. Right. That breaks my heart. So anything we can do to help that is awesome. And yeah. Anything else we missed? Anything we didn't discuss or didn't cover?
I think that we came a long way. I wasn't sure what all we were going to be talking about tonight. And I'm realizing as I'm kind of looking around and going, wow, we talked about warning signs. We talked about how people can get help. We can talk about one thing that I do want to put out there is that we do not require someone to have a formal diagnosis to come and to talk to us.
Very important.
Don't feel that we need a diagnosis. It could be, I'm having concerns or, someone having concerns, or maybe that you just want to get some more information for future use or anything like that. We know that the numbers are high and that kind of thing. So never fear about just being able to educate. So feel free that way. Also for everyone to know that we do not charge for any of our programs or services. Everything that we do is free. All of our mail outs, all of those kinds of things. There's no fee to any of that. Again, it's all through the generosity of our donors. So know that it's not an additional cost. And I think no. Okay. One more thing.
All right. So, hey, I'll stay here all night. I will.
Yeah, well, I want to be making sure that everybody knows that we do have some upcoming webinars and we have a place. I really want to make sure that we talk about it because it is so important to the society. We have something called the Asant Cafe. So that's ASANAT sorry, I'm going to repeat that. ASANT.ca, Asant. So it stands for Alzheimer Society of Alberta Northwest Territories Cafe. And that's where we house all of our information. So we have our education sessions on there. We have discussion groups on there. And we also have our webinars on there. So when we hold a webinar on the cafe, You can join live, and a lot of times it's doctors, it's lawyers, it's geriatricians, a wide variety of people come and speak.
Okay.
And how often is it that if you have, say, a question regarding behavior or responsive behaviors, that you can come and join us and actually ask the doctor and say, hey, or ask the psych nurse, what do I do? And you can actually have an answer. If you're not able to join us on the webinar, then we do save it, and you can just log on to the Sant Cafe and watch them whenever you need. So there's that. We actually on the next one coming up is on April 21st, and it is called Maintaining the Connection, and it's the successful and meaningful ways to have visits with people that are living with dementia. So that's going to be really good.
That'd be an important one.
Another one I'm so excited to see and be a part of. It is Sally Knocker from the UK is going to be joining us on May 19th, and they're going to be talking about watching and listening. So bringing fun and variety into the day for people that are living with dementia. So it's really interesting what they do and how they do it. I know that it's incredible how you can talk the wrong way to somebody living with dementia versus the person-centered way. And maybe I shouldn't say the wrong way, but more of an ideal way to be more person-centered. You know, can you say to somebody that wants a piece of toast, you know, or can you talk about, and I'm quoting David Sheard here loosely because he says it way better than me. But, you know, he talks about how somebody that wants a piece of toast, you can either tell them no or wait, or you can say, would you like white bread or brown bread? Would you like peanut butter or marmalade? Or to be able to say, you know, I remember I picked an orange one day and I could smell that orange and with the marmalade, and he goes and is able to go into detail and teach people how to be able to talk. So Sally Knocker is going to be an incredible person to hear that way, and we encourage people to sign up and register. The webinars that we have, we also have them for healthcare professionals too. So we really want to be able to make sure that the goal is for healthcare professionals, when a diagnosis is given, that they ask families if they can refer to us. Right. And that's a huge part of it, because that's where people are getting the diagnosis. So if we can get people refer to us as early as possible, then we're going to be able to do so much better. And by educating people, it takes the questions out of the doctor's hands and be able to put them to us, so we can be able to do the emotional supports. They can do the medical supports. We can work together. We can educate to try to reduce crisis situations, and if we can do that, then we're lessening the weight of the healthcare system. For sure. Right. So we're helping everyone just by being able to try to get those referrals coming in. So
that's awesome.
You know, if there's anything that we can do, you know, you can, like I said before, you can self-refer to us. You can ask your doctor to send us a referral as well. They're nice and easy. And if there's anything that we can do, just give us a call, and we will do our very best to you know, bring that that help for today to have hope for tomorrow. So
for sure. And I'm just curious, of those webinars that you guys have already done that you said are recorded and available on assant.ca, of those ones that are pre-recorded, what are maybe some of your highlights? What are your favorite ones that are already there that somebody could go watch right now?
Well, I really like the feelings of needs and expressions with Janine Camello. I thought that one was really interesting. I like how, so she's a geriatric psych nurse, and she talks about the different responsive behaviors that people are living with. And I bring this one up because it's interesting. People will say, that, oh, they're a hitter or they're a spitter, and they're labeling it. But when we actually look at it, it's actually an expression of a want or a need. what wants or needs are they not getting, and they're using this as their way to communicate.
That's their only
And
way
she
to
talks
communicate.
about exactly,
Yeah.
and she talks about different ways to kind of navigate that system.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had like Dr. Al Power joined us last September, and that one is on there. He is an incredible speaker, and he is absolutely wonderful, and has lots of resources and that come with their talk. So we have amazing ones to come. We have great ones in the past as well. So
we'll definitely have to send some people there.
Yeah.
And I'll put all the websites and stuff in the description. So if anybody's listening to this right now, just click below. There should be links to all these websites down there. You can go check them out right now. Well, hopefully finish listening to the episode and then go check them out. But if you want to leave right now, that's fine too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's Asant Cafe. So ASANT cafe.ca.
AsantCafe.ca. Gotcha. Even rhymes.
Absolutely.
Even rhymes. Nice. Poet, and I didn't even know it.
There you go.
Yeah. So other than that, anything else we missed? Anything else we should cover?
I want to say that we have it covered, but just like you, I could probably talk for many hours to come.
Well, I had so much fun. I'm sure I'm going to have to ask you on again here in the future, and we can talk some more about it and see what else is on the horizon. And also hopefully COVID's a little bit, because doing these in person is always just that other step nicer. These are fun too, but when you're able to get in front of somebody and have these conversations, especially conversations that can be as emotional as this, I think next time hopefully we can do it in person and bring more awareness to whatever is the latest and greatest in the field at that time.
That sounds fantastic, and I would absolutely look forward to it. And thank you so much. I know that you had seen the society on one of our community events that we were having, and you reached out to us. And I thank you so much for doing that and being willing to have some of those tough conversations, because dementia is exactly that. It can be a tough conversation for many years, and I think that we have a very special community, and we have great people like you that are in our community that are willing to try to fight the good fight and be able to share the all different aspects of dementia, whether it be the tough side of things or when we're creating moments of joy. It's because of people like you and our listeners that are willing to take the time to take part in evenings like this. So
awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Selfishly, I love doing this so much. It's hard to take a compliment on it, because I would do this. I would do this even if I had to pay to do it. So I had so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on. And like I said, I would love to do this again in the future. Anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome. I enjoyed this absolutely immensely. So thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I hope you guys all enjoyed that episode. Please reach out to me and let me know if you did, or if there's anything specific that you got out of it. And I'd love to get some feedback on this episode, because like I said in the intro, this is kind of a new domain that I want to go down is episodes like this. And if you have any ideas for, now that I've kind of been able to show you what I mean by an episode like this, if you have any other ideas for any other experts in fields that I can try and reach out to, and especially actually in talking to Sean Newman this weekend, he was telling me how much he relies on his audience to bring him guests and their recommendations. And I just want to keep reminding you guys that, this is your show. Whatever you want to see, you let me know. I'm at my open micer time. I'm trying to get my stage time as much as I can. And the more people I can stand in front of and do this podcast thing with, the faster I'm going to get better. So if you hear anything that strikes you, if there's any pieces of a podcast that you really like that you want to let me know you want to see more of, or if there's any ideas, any guests, or if you yourself want to come on, just reach out. I'm always looking to do this more. Nothing excites me more than getting another podcast on the schedule for sometimes it's a couple months away, or sometimes it's a couple days away, but nothing gets me excited like that. So if you guys can help me out on that journey, that's awesome. Like I say every time, the word of mouth is what spreads this thing. Passing it on to a friend if you think they'll enjoy it. Following the YouTube page, the Instagram page, all that kind of stuff, that really helps as well. And just thank you guys for all the support. I love the messages that you guys send me and the people I get to reconnect with and the conversations I get to have. I think just putting myself out there as somebody that loves this type of conversation is really opening the door to people to reach out to me and have these types of conversations. I think sometimes people really enjoy this stuff too, but they don't have anyone in their life, or maybe just due to COVID, they don't have those people around that they can have these types of conversations with. And I think they're finding that they can reach out to me, and I'll have these conversations all day long if I could. So feel free. I really enjoy it. So like I say, the sun is shining. It's really given a lot for my spirits. It's really picking me up. And I hope that it's picking you guys up too. And if you're relying on that sunshine to come back and that's what was going to turn everything around and you're still not feeling too good, just know that you can always reach out to somebody. You can always reach out to me. If you're not feeling good and you need some help, or you're confused and you can't figure things out of why you're feeling some way, that's natural. That's how a lot of us feel. That's one of the most universal feelings that's out there. So don't feel like you're lost or that you're alone. There's billions of us going through that exact same thing right now, and it's not going to be an easy fix. It's going to be hard, but you're going to do it. You are more than you think. Everybody is. The breadth of human potential is absolutely amazing. You just need to see it for yourself and maybe have somebody give you a little push. And sometimes all that takes is that maybe it's me saying it right now. Maybe it's something you're going to hear later today, but just to give you that push to not give up and just keep going to the next one. It will get better. Things are always in flux. Things are always changing and things are going to get better. So that's my message of every week. And I hope you guys are having a great one. Hope this episode starts the week off great. And I'll maybe have a second episode this week. Who knows? Because I have so many episodes in the can recorded here. I'm probably going to be recording or releasing two a week for the next little while here. If I do, see you at the end of the week. If not, I'll see you on the next one. All right. See you guys.